Welcome again, ghosts and ghouls, to the Kino Corner. I've got another spooky movie for you today. Have you ever encountered a witch, a consort of Satan? Have you ever been trapped in a room with a dead body for an entire night? Or maybe for 3 whole nights? Tonight, we dive into the classic horror film V, the very first horror film to be produced in the Soviet Union. It's a tale about a philosophy student, a seminarian named Kama, who makes a mistake of sleeping at a witch's house when traveling during his holiday. She comes to him in the middle of the night, curses him, mounts him, and makes Kama run like a horse. Soon, they're flying over the countryside, and Kama realizes that he's with a witch. After they descend, he beats her nearly to death, but something strange happens. She turns into a young and beautiful woman. Frightened, he runs away back to his seminary as fast as his feet can carry him. But he can't escape the events of this night, as soon after, a colonel in a nearby village sends for him. The colonel's daughter had returned home, weak and dying, and she made a dying request for the philosophy student Kama Brutus to read to her corpse the prayers for the dead for 3 nights after her death.
Что хотите со мной делайте, пан ректор, я не поеду.
Да тебя никакой черт не спрашивает о том, хочешь ли ты ехать или не хочешь.
Under the threat of harsh punishment, he heads to the village. Along the way, he and the Cossacks with whom he rides stop at an alehouse. They get blasted drunk and things start to get weird. One Cossack presses him about what he learns in seminary, and Kama begins hallucinating. This is only the beginning. At the village, they arrive to find the daughter dead, so Kama's work starts. Each night, he joins her corpse in the church, and each night, she wakes from the dead to torment him. The only thing protecting Kama from the witch is a sacred circle, but her attacks get more and more intense as the nights go on. She curses him, physically changing him and filling him with fear. He wants to run away, to escape this witch, but desertion would lead to his death, while sticking with his duty could give him vast riches. I'll be getting into heavy spoilers from here on out. The movie is currently free to watch on YouTube, so I'll leave a link to it in the description. So if you care about spoilers, feel free to watch the film and then come back to the video. The film all leads up to a menagerie of horrors, as the witch summons all sorts of creatures from hell to attack Kama. It's very spooky, neat, and a little bit goofy, but I found the climax to be quite fun. After all these creatures have gathered in the church, the witch summons the V, a very powerful beast from hell, whose power lays in its eyes. If Kama gazes into the V's eyes, then all is lost. Like an idiot, he looks into its eyes, and the unholy army promptly swarms the poor philosopher as the witch turns back into her old lady self. What attracted me to this film was the fact that it's the first horror film produced in the Soviet Union, and maybe the only one. It's kind of mind-blowing that their first horror movie released in 1967, well after almost every country with a robust film industry had created distinct horror film cultures. Maybe living in the Soviet Union was horror enough. This film also has all the trappings of folkore, which is a subgenre that I particularly love. It's based off the novella by Nikolai Gogol called The V, which released in 1835 and was heavily inspired by Russian and Ukrainian folktales, though it seems like the character of the V was Gogol's original creation, even if it does feel like something that might crop up in a folktale. The film is a pretty faithful adaptation of the novella, and so it definitely feels more like a folktale than what we might think a typical horror film should feel like. There's Kama's journey from the seminary into the countryside, which shows that he's traveling from a place of reason to the land of superstition. Outside the protective walls of the seminary, witches, demons, and all sorts of ungodly beings reign. This philosopher is no longer protected by any kind of institution, but rather, he's thrown into a hostile world with almost nothing to protect him. There's a sense of dread surrounding him. He knows that he's dealing with something supernatural and evil, and he also knows that it's only going to get worse. He knows that this job will be the end of him. But alas, there's no escape. And what is this character V, who ascends from the depths to kill the philosopher? Many claim that V is Gogol's creation, but he claimed that it came from the local Ukrainian folklore. Considering that historians haven't been able to find this character in that folklore, there's been a lot of skepticism about Gogol's claims. Gogol said that V was the name for the chief of the gnomes. Others have classified V as a vampire, but if V is a vampire, then he's nothing like Nosferatu or Dracula. He's a big and stocky beast with giant heavy eyelids. The eyelids are so heavy that he needs the other fiends to raise them for him, but his eyesight is his greatest strength. It pierces the protective barrier around the philosopher and allows all the hellspawn to overwhelm him. What's interesting is that all these confrontations take place in a church. The witch and the fiends don't seem all that bothered by all the religious iconography or the holiness of the place. Why is that? Has this holy ground been tainted or desecrated before the events of the film, or is God punishing the philosopher? There's this sense that the philosopher is strong enough to resist the witch alone, but when the various demons and the V appears, he falters. Each night is a more difficult test of faith, and he's just not strong enough to pass the test. Maybe he felt guilt for killing the witch at the beginning, and his looking at V was more of an act of intentional self-destruction, perhaps to atone for that sin. Like some of the best fairy tales, it leaves a lot to the imagination and encourages discussion about what it means and why characters do certain things. What I think elevates this movie are the visuals. The cinematography is absolutely gorgeous, and the costume and makeup design, especially for the witch, are great. The filmmakers used practical and in-camera effects to give the film a bit of a DIY feel. Some of the monsters, especially the skeletons, are a bit hokey, but some others are downright creepy. I'd recommend the film if you like fantasy folk horror. It feels like a dark fairy tale come to life on the screen. It's not too long, running at barely over an hour long, and it's free to watch on YouTube, so if you want a short and free spooky movie to watch, consider popping this on. This has been a bit of a shorter video, but I just wanted to recommend this movie to you guys, and I'll be making some shorter movie recommendation videos going forward, just so I can recommend more cool movies to you all. I've been the Kino Corner, and I will see you all in the next video.